Thanks, everybody. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. In case you don't know, my name is Mark Brainerd. I am the policy director for the office of Lieutenant Governor Kyle Evans Gay. Usually she would be kicking off these meetings. Unfortunately, today there was a travel schedule issue, and she is en route to a meeting currently downstate. So she is unable to kick things off today. But I wanted to thank you all for being here. If you could, please put your name and organization into the chat so we can know who you are and where you're from. And that is the whole point of these calls. So our office can have that outreach and continue to learn from you all as we reach kind of the 1 year mark in these roles. So that's all I have right now, Neil. If I can kick it back over to you and we can get today's program started. I'm very thankful for the program that you put together with the folks from DOL and DOE. I'm really excited to hear about the progress being made on SCR 109.
Absolutely. Yep. Happy to facilitate from here. And it's crazy to think it's already been a year in office and we've had a number of these now. And the topic I know is important to the Lieutenant Governor as she, sat in the Senate overseeing proceedings while we passed this resolution. So today's focus will be on a piece of legislation that was passed during this past General Assembly. You'll hear an introduction from Lauren Conrad about Senate Concurrent Resolution 109. We're joined by two great leaders from the Department of Labor and Department of Education who are going to speak to various ways that industry may be connected to the arts and arts education out in our schools. And then we'll really close with a discussion that I'll moderate, hoping to get input from all of you sort of about the current state of arts education and connections to local industry. The whole point of this resolution, which you'll hear about, is to better provide students with opportunities once they graduate and even before they graduate from high school to have exposure to careers in the creative economy so to hopefully stay here in Delaware and continue to contribute to our state. I know that's something a lot of you are interested in. So that's our agenda for today. We're going to start with an introduction to SCR 109. I don't see Representative Gorman on the call at the moment. Okay, but if anything changes, we'll have her speak to it as one of the sponsors. For background, and many of you were involved in advocating for this piece of legislation over the course of last session. It came from out of the CREATE plan findings, where we heard sort of the need for additional pathways programs to support arts education. We learned that the creative economy employs nearly 10,000 individuals. But we also heard about inequitable access to arts education across schools and a desire for more connection to industry. And this challenge particularly faces students from low-income backgrounds and in rural communities, which receive significantly less opportunities. We also heard a lot from many of you across the state about the lack of professional development pipelines that contribute to brain drain. Students leaving Delaware because they don't feel like they have a clear pathway or pipeline into industry. And so given what we've learned, which is that there are jobs and that they do pay, and there are sort of a lack of infrastructure to support these students, we worked with a number of legislators last session to put forward Senate Concurrent Resolution 109, which is currently being implemented. And so I will turn it over to Dr. Lauren Conrad at the Department of Education to introduce herself as she is sort of leading the data collection process for this resolution.
Thank you, Neil. Good morning, everyone. Yes, I am Dr. Lauren Conrad. I oversee visual and performing arts and gifted education at the Department of Ed. And it has been a wonderful opportunity to work with some of my colleagues from across the hallway with this resolution. And so I'm happy to talk a little bit about it this morning and then turn it over to some others to tell a little bit more and give some presentations on apprenticeship and work-based learning. So thank you for having us this morning. The long and the short of what we were tasked to do is to direct the Department of Education in collaboration with the Department of Labor and Workforce Development Board to evaluate and report on opportunities for Delaware pathways to support the creative economy. And so back in June, that is when this resolution passed through. And so we have been working collaboratively among those entities since July, creating a cohort that meets bi-weekly to check in and make sure that we are meeting each of the expectations that were set forth within the resolution. So the Department of Labor has shared many pieces of data with us to this point. We've also heard from Joanna at the Workforce Development Board, and she has shared some information with us as well. And at the Department of Education, I've been working collaboratively with my partners in career and technical education to ensure that we are meeting all of the expectations within the tasks set forth for the Department of Ed as well. There are many hands on deck to support this work, and so we are making our way through all of it to ultimately have a report to the General Assembly and the Arts and Culture Caucus by the date of February 1st, 2026. And so one of the tasks set forth was to have some sessions just like this to share more about work-based learning and apprenticeship with industry partners in the creative economy, and to have this opportunity to share what those things are and what it could potentially look like within the creative economy to offer those opportunities to students in schools. So we're really excited to be with you today and to hear some of your feedback as we move forward. And very eager to share the report as it comes together in February, and we will then communicate what happens next, and we will be ready to greet that as it comes. So we are in the thick of it and really enjoying the process as it moves forward. So thank you. Any questions?
I think there's one more slide, Lauren, if you want. So this is the update labor information is one of the major requirements Lauren spoke to. The other major requirements are around reporting. I'll let people observe this for a second.
I have a question.
Sure thing. Hi, Kevin.
How's it going, Lauren? It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Have you guys identified any particular like pathway areas?
We started with all of the creative economy jobs that are included in the CREATE plan. That's sort of like the broadest world. And it's that set of jobs that the Department of Labor are looking at to see sort of what the growth looks like from their end. And then I think that's sort of the starting point for discussion. So intended to be inclusive. This is the final slide, Lauren, on sort of requirements for the legislation so folks can see what's coming.
So we are working within the department to gather and potentially create some resources to support our creative economy students within CTE and non-CTE pathways to help them be the most successful version of themselves as they are preparing for college and career. One of the other things that we are doing to make sure that we meet all of the expectations within this legislation.
For context, folks might see a phrase on the slide and say like, CTE, non-CTE. What does that mean? What's the difference? I'm happy to take a crack at explaining that, and others can join in if I get it wrong. But there are career and technical education pathways that the state has deemed a certain level because those industries have jobs that are considered high growth, high wages, high level of education. Not everything qualifies for that sort of designation. That designation comes with some additional funding and support. It also comes with additional requirements for rigor, where these sort of courses must grow in nature. They also must have some alignment with industry. And unlike those career and technical education courses, there are sort of non-CTE pathways that schools can develop locally that are a series of 3 courses in a certain area for students. They, contribute to graduation, but they don't necessarily have to come with that sort of real life work-based learning or apprenticeship exposure that we're going to hear about today, and doesn't come with any additional state funding to do that. So there are schools that have developed arts pathways locally, many of them. They just don't sort of have that additional level of support and real life experience for students.
And Vanessa, thank you. I see your question in the chat. If you aren't looking at the chat, Vanessa has asked any thoughts on including teaching artists as a possible workforce and considering updating teaching artists in the labor department to include in classify. Currently, as it stands, there are very specific criteria for occupations that fall within the data that is collected. And so we are working with the Department of Labor as we explore what those are and how they are collected. So more information will follow as we have the report shared in February.
Now, Vanessa, part of the reason we began at the DAA even began advocating for this in the start is because, we didn't feel that the current labor market projections were inclusive of all jobs in the creative economy. And so far, that's sort of been confirmed with what we've learned so far. So that includes, teaching artists, but other sort of freelance work and gig work, which so many of us do in the creative economy, aren't captured in the same way that sort of full-time employment are. And so we want to make sure that we can do our best to, reflect the true nature of employment in our sector and have that then inform, the work of government. And so I think that that's like a really important set of jobs. And also you could see a world, right, where students in high school who are interested in arts education, maybe they leave high school, certified as a teaching artist or prepared to be a teaching artist after they go to high school and college. Like that's certainly a career path for individuals. So I think it's exciting to bring up. Any other questions, high level, on the legislation, the purpose of it, terms we've used, and if not, we're going to have plenty of time at the end of discussion for like the nitty gritty of all of this. Have we looked into any of the arts as trades, Kevin? It's a good question. I think it's actually a perfect transition into Joe from the Department of Labor. We're going to do sort of an overview of existing sort of workforce programs, both in Department of Labor and Department of Education, that maybe you are or aren't taking advantage of. Maybe there are opportunities here that we're not yet capturing. And then from there, we can, I think, sort of dive into that question a bit. So, Joe, I'll have you introduce yourself, please, to the group and walk through the slides you prepared.
Sure, thanks. So my name is Joe Olivere. I work at the Department of Labor in the Division of Employment and Training, and I'm the manager for the apprenticeship and training team. So what I kind of prepared today is just a brief overview, kind of how apprenticeships can benefit and then also benefit the creative economy, but then also to look at some of the connections there in occupations. So I see that there was some questions about arts as trades, and I think that we can kind of address that as we go through. First and foremost, just to go over some of the basics for anyone in the room that understands apprenticeships, but maybe doesn't know some of the unique features of them. Apprenticeships are a structured training program, but it's a customizable one. They result in a nationally recognized credential at the end. Those are issued by the Delaware Department of Labor in our state because we're a state apprenticeship agency, but they're recognized federally. Both on-the-job training and classroom training are part of the apprenticeship programming. So in developing an apprenticeship, maybe for an occupation in the creative economy, it would need to take into consideration dedicated theory time or class time, and then dedicated time on the job and training. The training aspect usually works in a mentorship capacity. In the trade skills, we call them journey workers. I think you could say a journey person almost in any occupation. But I like to think of mentors in that they're kind of taking the apprentice in to train them and teach them this occupation in a way that hopefully builds value in them through the relationship they build. So that mentorship allows your organization to give them dedicated time to learning how your organization does things or this occupation is done. And those mentors are usually some of your best team members. Curriculum is tailored to the needs of your source material, meaning, when you're talking about the technical instruction, the oversight there from federal or state level comes really into subject matter, not necessarily methodology. And the curriculum that you're teaching doesn't have to be like of this or of that stature. It just has to be of this subject matter. And then, usually we look for curriculums that are credentialed or that come from, an institution that's credentialed. But the curriculum itself is customizable as well as much as the on-the-job work that they do. So that's important to know. A lot of times, it's sometimes thought of as one apprenticeship program is you do this and you do this. It's sometimes changed up as you go through. And lastly, one of the things I like to talk about with apprenticeship is always the retention that it provides. Your employees have gained like a training experience specific to your firm or organization, in whatever that occupation is. You tend to see that there are variations from how one place does it to the other, especially when you talk about nowadays in technology, different versions of the technology, different versions of the tools that are used. It's not a one-for-one, from one job to the next always. So there's this feeling that they're training within the culture, organization, and economy that they're going to stay in. And it feels like, to me, the best way to say it is a lot of actual apprentices that go through an apprenticeship will say they felt like they were a part of or belonged to a part of something bigger than just, learning a job or going to work. Lastly, completers are usually better prepared for advancement in the organizations. So when you get to someone who's in an apprenticeship, something somebody much wiser than me once said is apprenticeship is really a choose your own adventure. You go and you pick a job that you want to learn, you put the effort in to get into that role and learn it. But then from there, you decide whether or not you want to go into another role in that same firm, another job in that same economy. And what you usually see is people that have completed apprenticeships usually advance further into the organizations that they go through them with, because they're kind of expected to learn this one part, but then at the end of that, they usually tend to want to continue to learn. I did see a question that popped up from AT. Thanks for the detail. What does credentialed mean in the context of nonprofit? Well, credentialed, credential's in the eye of the beholder. So a high school diploma is a credential that everyone recognizes because it's part of the public school system. But a journey person certificate, which is the street name for the credential that you get from an apprenticeship, which is a completion of registered apprenticeship. That certificate is the national credential. And of course, that is most valuable in probably what people consider the traditional trades, construction trades, areas in which that document has been recognized for years as proof of a 4-year program or 2-year program in some cases. But as we've learned in culinary and IT and now in teaching and education, as well as other things, those credentials don't have to be standalone. There are degree apprenticeships where these can run concurrent with associate's degrees. There are apprenticeships where they can be the pathway into and credited towards degrees. And then there are some times where the credential itself within your economy may still be valuable when we talk about jobs or occupations in the arts that are considered trades. So there are, the best example I can think of off the top of my head is, a set builder or somebody that works in an area in which they're using carpentry skills. That doesn't mean they're a carpenter. It doesn't mean that they're, just a set builder, but it means that there may be some area in there for having occupations that are kind of hybrid into that area. I looked a lot at audiovisual engineering. I looked at a lot of things, and we can pop to the next slide because this kind of transitions into what we're talking about. Some of the occupations that exist in registered apprenticeship that fit very well into the creative economy. And by no means does that mean that this is an exhaustive list. It's just that idea of here are some of the areas in which I think that there's a direct correlation. Software developers, graphic designers, and interface designers, engineering technicians in many different occupations that fit into that category, painters, sculptors, and illustrators, designers, display designers, disc jockeys, which is a really interesting one that actually got approved by the federal agency, by the USDOL in the last couple of years, and I kind of was a part of a team that saw that. And it's not radio disc jockeys; we're talking about actual, disc jockeys that would work events. Technical writers or content creating professionals, audio and video technicians, and really that gets into audio operators, light and stage techs, sound engineering technicians, which then go into your recording engineers and sound mixers, and then photographers and still photographers specifically is an occupation that I found that I thought was of interest. But these are some ideas of things that would maybe be in there. But let's say I own an art studio, and in that art studio, what would be an occupation I could have in that studio? It may be related to the arts, it may be not. It may be related to the building maintenance. It may be related to other things. So there's certainly areas in which you may or may not employ as someone who works in this industry that would still be able to go through an apprenticeship if that's something that it would benefit them and you. I see another question popped up, and I want to make sure we're addressing them quickly. I don't want to go over time. If we're talking about trades in the arts, why is work produced not the recognized credential? That seems to be the thing that will qualify every job listed and what end clients or hiring clients look for, your work. Yeah, well, work is also judged in some regards. An apprenticeship requires time. So even in shorter apprenticeships, 1 or 2 year apprenticeships, there's a proficiency, a competency needed in those tasks that you learn. When you say that it's the measure or the credential should just be the work, well, that depends on how you define the work. And every occupation doesn't define the work the same way. A credential is no different than saying, well, I wrote a 20-page paper last week, and I think that should mean that I have an associate's degree. I've produced the work, but it's not given to me just because I produced the work. It's given to me because that work was measured against some system by a credentialed organization and then told that that meets their requirements. So I think the idea in apprenticeship is not to say that your work isn't good enough. It's more to put in a perspective of your work has met a standard, a structure of training that has been designed in which it puts somebody through learning proficiently their job. Not just, I mean, listen, I've done odd end jobs throughout my life that I certainly can say I learned a lot about, but were they proficient? Was I a proficient worker? Should I be training somebody else how to do those jobs? Probably not. So I think that's the idea behind that credential and why it's valuable. But more importantly, in apprenticeship, it's backed by a system that's been around for 100 years. An idea of a mentorship, a person taking a new apprentice under the wing and teaching them that trade. And that's the goal. The goal is to provide a different style of education and a different style of career entry. Keep in mind, apprenticeships that are in this economy or that would work in this industry can be created from these and kind of customized, like I said earlier. So our unit is more than willing to work with any employer on trying to find a methodology, a curriculum, and finding the most cost-effective way to make that work. There's no fee for our services to help you develop a program and put that into place. There's no fee to use apprenticeship as a training method. And the fees that are involved usually with curriculum or education in the arena of apprenticeship are solely at the discretion of the sponsor, which when I say sponsors, for anyone that knows, that means the organization that's responsible for overseeing the apprenticeship. It sometimes is the employer, it sometimes is a third party. For instance, an association could say, we're going to take all these employers and just kind of oversee the apprenticeship as a unit in a group program. And that's usually in outside trades, outside of the traditional trades, a model that works really well. So I think that's key to understanding. I did see something else pop up. may I gingerly ask if there are any artists providing input on what the possible career pathways could be? Maybe a question outside of what I can answer, in that the pathways as a whole, starting all the way through CTE, through an apprenticeship, could be closely parallel or related or separate, depending on that. But I think that from the apprenticeship perspective, I've been working with this group on trying to isolate what occupations, what SOC code or ONET code or career cluster occupations fit the best into where we could say, hey, I can develop an apprenticeship program for that a company could tailor or customize to what they want, and then see it as a way to recruit, train, and then retain talent outside of traditional methods. So those things are all parts of the conversation. I don't want to speak for anybody else. I think that some of the CTE and education members, DOE members on the call could address that too. But who set standards? Other examples of pathways we can access?
I think we're using terms maybe interchangeably too. Like the point of today's call is to hear from folks about sort of like what are the pathways in the creative economy that, like, you know, we can be supportive of. You've pulled a list here of registered apprenticeships, which is a
These are just
specific program. Maybe like, why are these the ones that have been deemed by the federal government as registered apprenticeships? And then if there were to be others, like what would that look like in terms of designating others maybe?
Yeah, because it's a long answer, I'll keep it short. The USDOL and the federal government says, you know, an occupation is apprenticeable and not apprenticeable by using a couple different qualifications. First and foremost, it has to be an occupation that is highly skilled and requires at least a year of training to be proficient in. It has to require certain other aspects in regards to the requirement of schooling. It shouldn't be an occupation that you can learn just by, you know, going somewhere for 6 weeks, doing it, saying, oh, out of repetitive nature, I've gotten this down. But the list I put here was just an example list. It's not exhaustive of some occupations that are apprenticed in the United States through registered apprenticeship, whether it's at a state or federal level. There are standards. If you, Suzanne, I don't want to use that word. Standards in apprenticeship mean an actual document that charters your program, but standards in like what the requirements of training are originally created when the USDOL gets a submission from a party like yourself. If I'm the Delaware Arts Alliance, and I think that there's a great opportunity to have this occupation be set up as an apprenticeship, I could submit that to the USDOL for review. It's reviewed with industry experts, a minimum of 4 to 6, depending on how big the industry is. That then will vet that and say, this is what it's missing. It should have this. If this was a nationally recognized occupation, it would have this minimum. And that then goes through 6 regional directors and a national office at the USDOL for vetting. So they take an occupation and they look at it from a bunch of different angles and say, yes, we think it could be apprenticed. They post that, they publish it, and that first created format of standards is not the end all be all. It's just the foundation in which other firms can say, we want to customize that. We want to change that. So in Delaware, we draw from that. We draw from the USDOL's database of occupations. We draw from the things that they do nationally. And then we take that and say, hey, how do we make it work for Delaware? So I think that might answer the question a little bit. And I don't want to continually go down that path to a level in which we've muddied up. Again, what Neil has pointed out is the point of the call, is to just identify what some of the areas that we can address are with apprenticeship, or what some of the areas that apprenticeship are used in other areas are.
Well, we do have a few points on the call. One is discussion, one is learning. We're doing a lot. I think the questions have been really, really helpful. And I think this is such an area that we haven't worked in as a sector, right? Like many of us haven't worked in this space. And I think the questions have been really, really illustrative and helpful. And we're going to move on from apprenticeships to just another way that there are potential connections between industry and education. And that is a program that lives over in the Department of Education called Work-Based Learning. Keep the great questions coming. I'm going to allow Daneisha to introduce herself, and we'll pivot over to there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Neil. It is my absolute pleasure to join you all today, especially because I had an oldest child who is committed to the arts, has been in performing arts forever. So I'm glad this is the conversation that's happening, and I'm super excited to support it. My name is Daneisha Allen. I am with the Career and Technical Education Work Group within the Department of Education. I support our work-based learning initiatives throughout the state, as well as business, finance, and marketing pathways. And so within Delaware, we have, and CTE, we have our work-based learning continuum, which is a statewide framework that is really designed to help bridge the gap in between classroom instruction and the workplace by allowing the students and guiding them to go through progressive stages of career development, from awareness all the way through hands-on real-world experiences. As I mentioned, the program, which is embedded within our pathway structure, Delaware Pathways are the career clusters that were mentioned previously, that students have the opportunity to engage in pathways where they are taking 3 sequential courses in order to work towards a career or area of their interest and choice. Work-based learning is the last phase of that process, and it allows students to gain that experience working full-time within an employer setting, having that hands-on employer support to allow them to gain additional information and knowledge outside of just the classroom. The purpose for Pathways in general is to integrate our programs of study, employer engagement, and allow our students to earn not only credits at the post-secondary and secondary level, so high school and college, but it also gives students the opportunity to earn some industry recognized credentials that are critical for them to really go on and be successful once they complete their high school education. So the students, once they are in middle school, they begin their first stage of the continuum, and that is our career awareness. So that typically occurs through our earlier years, and at that stage, it's where the students are really introduced to a variety of different occupations, workplace behaviors, what it means to work in an environment, and really just starts to pique their interest about the opportunities that are available, and give them a foundational understanding of different industries through activities such as guest speakers, career fairs, workplace tours, to really just allow them to imagine their future selves within the workplace and possibly within those industries. Career exploration is typically 7th and 8th grade through early high school, so usually like 7th through 9th or 10th grade. And this is where they are not only getting into more specialized content, but they're also really working to develop their employability skills to ensure that once they get to that final stage, the work-based learning practicum, that they have the skills that employers are looking for, as well as their academic and technical skills. So at this phase, the students are learning how to conduct informational interviews. They're doing job shadowing. They are participating in industry-led projects with employer partners so that they can really begin to experience the professional setting and learn directly from employers about what the expectations are. And so from this point, it really shifts from just exposure and exploration to actual engagement, and allowing the students to demonstrate how their skills directly align with their pathways and what they're interested in, so that they can really start to set their goals for the future. Our final stage, career immersion, is our work-based learning practicum. And at this stage, it is where students participate in cooperative education opportunities. They are participating in apprenticeships, clinical experiences for students who are in our allied health fields, and then our traditional internships as well. And these are the experiences that, again, really allow the students to gain that one-on-one connection with employers, allow them to dive deeper into what the workplace environment and expectations are, and allow them to demonstrate the skills and knowledge that they have gained within the classroom so that they are better equipped to either go into a college program or directly into their career once they graduate. So the students, as they work through this process, particularly at the exploration and awareness phases, students are working to develop a career portfolio in which the students are gaining artifacts that they can demonstrate that they have both that academic skill as well as those career ready skills. So the portfolio has their resume, it has their work products that they have done. It demonstrates the type of courses that they've engaged in. And it really just allows a robust experience for our students that begin, again, within the middle grades and continues on through post-secondary. So I will pause there. I know I threw a lot at you guys very quickly. What questions are there?
Hi, Daneisha. It's good to see you.
Hey, Kevin.
What is like? Do we have? I think I'm trying to wrap my head around like what is our understanding of the arts like workspace?
So can you give me a little bit more? Like, what do you?
It feels like a lot of this language doesn't necessarily speak to the arts and what it looks like to like operate as a professional in the arts industry. There's a lot of like, and it could just be vernacular, right? Like, but it's a lot of words, I think, that make it feel like it's in a box when arts are a lot more like the intersection. You can like, there are a whole lot of roads and pathways, and arts are like the ones that you put on top because it creates intersections of commerce. But the language that I'm hearing does not seem like it's giving it that type of space to exist in.
Got it. Thank you so much for that, Kevin. I think, and I can only speak from the career and technical education space. Much of that is likely because, at least within the areas that we offer, the pathways that we offer here in Delaware, we have not formally included the arts as part of our pathways. And I think that these conversations will help to inform what that needs to look like and ensure that we're able to speak your language effectively, but that you are also kind of fully aware of what that looks like within the CTE space as well. So I think that that is something that we can definitely continue to explore as we move forward, just to ensure that folks are aware of how it relates to their respective areas, especially as we build this out. I see, Ashley, you had your hand raised.
Everyone, thank you, Daneisha, for and everyone here. You've been really wonderful to help kind of set a tone and give us some background information. I just want to kind of take Kevin's point and even expand on it a step more in looking at the breakdown in terms of like the idea of career awareness, especially in the elementary and middle school areas. I know from working with lots of teachers in the specifically within the unified arts that are working in schools, there is a great discrepancy between the number of teachers in some art forms as opposed to other teachers in other art forms. And I wonder, I hear that this conversation is helping to kind of maybe frame what next steps are, but I would lift up that I don't even know if the arts are existing, specifically the performing arts, thinking about theater and dance, are even existing in the atmosphere in most of the state's elementary and middle schools. You know, we have the research is out there. Out of all of the schools statewide, there are only, I think, 10 dance teachers in K-12 schools in the entire state. More of the dance teachers are focused in Kent and Sussex counties, interestingly, because they are more likely to have created specific and intentional space for dance programs in both middle school and high school. But there's no way feasible for a student in second grade to even have that interaction with a professional actor, with a professional dancer. For many of our students, the arts, even access to an art museum is a challenge, especially if we think about like Western Sussex. So I think if there is a way to create some system of ensuring, or even a process where artists could have that opportunity to interact and engage in schools in some sort of career-based formalized way, that would really be an essential part of this process.
Thank you for that. Dr. Conrad, did you get all of that as well?
And we're recording too, so we got it all.
Perfect. Thank
Oh.
you for that. Sorry, Neil, go ahead.
No, I was just say Reggie has got the hand raise and the clapping feature. She's mastered the emoji reacts. Go ahead and raise your question up, Reggie.
Love an emoji. So I work at Winter Museum Garden and Library, and we run a one of our field trip options is a career day field trip where the teachers can select. We're lucky at Winter. We have actually a lot of trades here. We have a carpentry shop. We have an electrical, whole electrical department. But we have marketing and finance and all these different areas. And so for the career day, the teacher will kind of select who they want the students to talk to. So I guess my question would be, for this like career, it fits really well into that career awareness, career sort of exploration a little bit phase. Is there somewhere where, how do we figure out which schools participate in this kind of work-based learning? What should we kind of be looking for when we're, promoting this program as an option?
So for CTE pathways in general, and Dr. Conrad can speak a little bit more about the arts, creative arts. We are in 89 middle and high schools throughout the state, and most of those have either a CTE coordinator or director, or a work-based learning coordinator or school counselor who helps to facilitate these processes. But there are a couple of different options and opportunities to get the word out, either through the CTE office, where we can distribute that to the schools directly. But then also the Office of Work-Based Learning, which is housed in Del Tech. They also lend support within the employer space and help to facilitate those connections amongst the schools with employers.
That's great. Thank you.
My
And I
pleasure.
think it's worth raising too, just like that is I think a key finding of these conversations is like the structures that exist make it so that the arts organizations and the schools that have dedicated time and personnel to like make those connections will make those connections, right? And so are there better ways to sort of support those connections to happen? And then what is the infrastructure to provide those opportunities to all students and sort of do some of that matchmaking?
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Kevin. And could you introduce yourself, Kevin, too? I want people to know your background. I think it's helpful.
Hi, my name is, thank you, Neil. And hi, my name is Kevin McCove. I'm a bespoke music composer currently, right? So I make music for television and advertising. Certainly all of the advertising that you've seen, if you've ever watched like the NBA finals or anything like that, if you watch a television, you've seen an ad that I've worked on.
You're asking if the arts group have watched sports, and I think we probably have, but
So I work on that kind of stuff. But previously I was like your traditional idea of a performing musician. I've done everything from improvisational jazz piano to opening for Drake and Billy Joel and Nicki Minaj, among other people. And I work as a professional songwriter as well. So that's like a little bit of who I am. I've also run like a statewide, kind of school tour where I go around and talk to kids about how to become a full-time entrepreneur in the arts, which I've been doing since 2014. So I've been up and down the state and at a lot of different schools talking to kids that range between the ages of middle school. I've actually been all the way down to elementary school, but middle school and high school primarily. So I have a lot of experience speaking to children and understanding what they're interested in and how to deliver a message to them. Which brings me to kind of the point that I was going to bring up, which is one, I think that it's important to like have the correct presentation when you're like talking to kids. When we talked about the whole like, you could go and talk to kids in a career fair setting. I did this last week at Smyrna Middle School, and that setting is very different than the setting that I usually provide, which is more of like the entire atmosphere, right? It's like a little bit of a performance. Hey, I'm on stage. There's a different like unlock that happens in a child's mind. And I think for the arts, you certainly need that. Presentation is part of the art. And then what matters to me most out of that, though, is that I feel like is maybe missing here is the lifespan of an artist, which is an important thing to like consider. And if you're going to give this information to a bunch of children and then they go into the world believing something, I think they should believe the truth, which is that most professional artists don't have careers that last much longer than 10 years, very much like a professional athlete, right? Like there's a big drop off of people, and anybody else who's on this call who works in the professional industry, you probably understand that the longer you go along, the harder it is to maintain a particular degree of professional success. And then what that looks like afterwards, what it looks like after that, for that, if you make it to 10 to 15 years of professional work, how do you transfer your skills, and what skills have you acquired in creative thinking? I acquire it or equate it much closer to like mathematics, where it's not about the math, it's about the critical thinking. I think in all of the different work-based learning and the apprenticeships or whatever it is that we push forward and apply and get on board with, I think it's just very important to understand that there is a lifespan to an artist, and in many different careers, and those lifespans look different. And if we want to prepare those artists to be able to succeed in the future, we also have to make sure that we're highlighting the skills that they have that are transferable so they can go into different fields as it continues.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Kevin. That's really helpful. And I think, can I clarify too, when you say the like lifespan, that's certain jobs, but not maybe in the industry. I mean, you can be a professional dancer for so many years, but you can still work in the creative industries and in other ways that aren't maybe just that one profession, right?
Yeah, yes and no, right? Like, and I think that is the beauty of this conversation, is that it changes. Like, because working for someone, yes, like I think everybody who's ever worked with let's say, like, look, if I work with an advertising agency, the fact is that the way that the advertising business works changes. And so, like, for instance, 10 years ago, you used to be able to go to a big ad house, right? And everything would be provided for in-house. And then that entire industry changed because there was a fluid agency model that happened. And most of the people that worked in fluid agencies were young, right? So if now, right, like in New York, we were just at a big mixer, like Halloween, most of the people are out of work. That's a reality that we should talk about, right? Like those people are out of work. Many of the creative industries that we want to push people into, I think we as artists have to be mindful and say, some of these industries aren't about to exist. Some of them don't exist. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been in the industry I'm in now, putting music on television. Wouldn't have been possible. But now that industry, like, it existed, and it only existed for a brief period of time, which is why I think that the skills are important. It's not the job. Like, so much of this language is about job, and again, it's just vernacular, but so much of it is about job, but it's more about the skill, because yes, the jobs change, but literally also your ability to do some of like the art in certain places changes. Like it just,
Yeah, I
It's
appreciate it.
unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but it's a reality that I think we should talk about if we want to consider really equipping our children and Delawareans, you know, with like the proper skills that they need.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. And it actually, Joanne, I didn't realize you were on the call. I'm really happy that you're here and would love you to introduce yourself. And I feel like you'd be a great person to respond to this.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. My name is Joanna Stibe. I'm currently serving as the Executive Director for the Delaware Workforce Development Board. Pretty soon, we'll be moving over to the newly created Office of Workforce Development within the state of Delaware. So it's really interesting that you just said that, Kevin, because I think there is a big disconnect. And maybe that's not the right word, but you know, when you think about workforce development, it's very much rooted in jobs, in occupational code, standard occupational code. So career and technical education, the Workforce Development Board, when they invest or when they want to create new pathways or invest in training programs, it's very much rooted in what does this job look like? What does this training result in, like this particular job? So I think there's probably, and somebody said it earlier, like we're kind of talking two different languages here, like standard workforce development versus, you know, what the arts economy really does bring to Delaware. So, and I think that some of the work that Neil has done is really like drilling down what are those occupations that are either in the creative economy or adjacent. And somebody said it earlier, like they have accountants, they have marketing teams, they've got, you know, they've got all these occupations in this creative economy that helps support. So I think that's a big hurdle that we sort of have to get past. So somebody had put in the chat around if they have a workforce development program, is there funding? So there is funding in the state of Delaware for workforce development. And so where I sit is really that post-secondary workforce development. We do some in-school youth investments, but a majority of the funding that the board sort of administers or oversees is funding for that adult population, somebody that you know, is maybe out of work or unemployed, or maybe they just want to reskill or upskill. That's where the funding sits. So there's two ways in which we fund, and I say we, that's the board dollars. So if you have a workforce development program, the first thing, and this is where I'm saying it's like rooted in occupation. You have to look at our high demand occupation list that the board creates, which is based off of labor market information. And if there's an occupation on that list that your workforce training program will train to, it can be added to what we call our eligible training provider list. And then anybody that comes into our facilities, we've got 4 American Job Centers across the state, and they say they want to be skilled. If that program is on our list, we could potentially, if they qualify, provide support around having that individual person join a class. The second way that we do it is that we do cohort contracts. So we release RFPs. We are releasing several in the next couple months. Both the Workforce Development Board and Department of Labor Division of Employment and Training have workforce dollars. We're going to be releasing these RFPs. That's basically somebody applying and saying, I have this workforce development program. I need this funding, may not be the full amount that I need. I might be braiding with other funding. And I'm going to train these individuals for this particular occupation. They're going to get this recognized credential at the end of training. The Department of Labor or the board can provide support around that kind of funding. So I'm very much in favor of the arts. I think one thing that happens in the state of Delaware is we have that brain drain. We've got people that come to UD, they come to Del State, and then they leave after the 4 years because they feel like, you know, Delaware doesn't provide. I mean, I have 3 kids that are all in their early 20s. They all want to move away. And I'm like, why? Hope it's not me. But, you know, they're thinking about the South and Charleston and Charlotte with all this energy that's around it. And so, you know, for economic development, for the current companies that we have here, we've got to figure out how to make young people feel like Delaware, that it's happening, things are going on here. So,
Yeah, well said.
yeah. So
I appreciate that. we could I think talk about this for hours, and we've only just begun to scratch the surface. But I'm gonna land the plane a bit and talk next steps. I think what we're seeing here too is like the first time in Delaware we've really tried to have some conversations across education, labor, industry, and the arts. Like these have maybe I shouldn't say that. They've been conversations for a while, but I think we've reached a new point where we're really trying to drill down into this. And you know, to hear Joanna and Joe and Daneisha, and there were others from DOE and DO on the call who've had to drop off now, like to be able to have them talking our language, so to speak, in the arts a little bit, and have us try and learn their language of like what our traditional workforce development programming and CTE look like. I think this is sort of an important nexus point for all of us. And you know, this is just the beginning of the conversation. We ended up sort of taking questions throughout as opposed to the end, but we knew we weren't going to get to everybody. So what we've done here is put a set of questions online that if you're not someone who got the chance to speak, or you have other thoughts, you know, later today, or you want to sort of compose yourself, please, please, please add additional thoughts into this survey. There's a few sort of open-ended questions that should be able to capture any of your responses. This is all getting summarized. We will summarize all of this and sort of put the sort of key findings into the report. They will not be attributed to, like, you know, Reggie Lynch from Winterthur says this, that, the other. It will really be a summary document. We've also been sitting down with arts educators and students. We did that in September at the Arts Education Conference to get their perspective. You'll see in here, there's a few questions for educators too. If you have those sorts of networks, you are more than welcome to push this out to get others' input. And if you want to come keep talking to us about this, we will be in person at Pine Box Studios on the 8th of December. Crazy, we're scheduling things in December already, and we'll be at the Bigs on the 10th for a similar conversation. I think we'll probably adjust the structure of our agenda a bit just based on what we've learned from this virtual meeting. You know, with 50 people and a lot of really great input, it's hard to hear from everybody, but we're going to do a similar sort of structure at these two meetings of like a little bit of an overview and then some more discussion. And then, of course, Joe's put his contact information in the chat to learn more about apprenticeship specifically if you want to try and see if that's a fit for you. We can also maybe get some follow-up information from you, Joanna, the things you just shared to push out as a resource to this group afterwards. And otherwise, I'll turn it over to Mark if there's anything I missed that you want to close us out with. Oh, actually, Mark, do you want to speak to the next meeting? I know you all are excited to do an in-person meeting.
Yeah, the next convening of this group is as in person in Dover in Legislative Hall on January 8th, 2026, 9:30 to 10:30. We're really excited. Thank you, Neil and Jordan, for helping us wrangle this date and time. I know it was a lot to finally get this on the calendar to do in person, so we're really excited to do it. Hope everybody can make it. I put my email as well as the general Lieutenant Governor office email in the chat. If you have any questions about the in-person meetup or any questions about today's information, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to put you in contact with any of the people or agencies that spoke today. Neil, again, thank you to you and your team for everything you did today. Joe, Lauren, Daneisha, thank you for all of your time. I know that was a lot, and we really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We'll send out slides, the contact information, and please save this date. We want it to be a party. This is the kickoff to the new year, the new legislative session. You know, a morning meeting in Dover midweek. Do I have to do that? We are kicking off the legislative year, hopefully with an exciting agenda. We'll be in person. Maybe we'll have a performance. Who knows? We haven't planned it yet. Open to ideas, but save the date. We hope to see you in person. Thanks, everybody. Talk soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
To those asking about the recording, yes, we can make the recording available too. We usually do that as well. We'll do a blog summary as well. All right, I'm glad my hotel Wi-Fi held up. Didn't crash out. Thank you all. Lauren, Daneisha, do you guys have a standing meeting? Did I make that up, or was that sort of a one-time